Nice to be here with you at this new PentaBAR. My name is Cornel Fatulescu. I'm Chief Platform Officer at Pentalog, meaning I'm in charge with product and technology aspects of our group strategy. And I'm going to talk today about agility from a different angle. Those who know me know that I'm an advocate of agility. And today I'm going to look at agility from a very particular angle, from a very critical one, agility in crisis. And I'm going to start this presentation, I hope you see my screen, with why. What was the trigger of preparing such a presentation? It didn't came to my mind only once that we reinvent the same thing all over again. So I start questioning, and this is how I triggered this the need of such a presentation. And then I will go to 10 challenges of agility. Good. And then 10 hints of enhanced agility. There will be a conclusion, which are more like highlights from the presentation, and then a Q&A session in the end. Therefore, I kindly ask you to take notes, write your questions. I have a flow of my own, so I will go through it, and in the end I will take your questions. And if you can use the Q&A feature of Zoom that we are using right now, that would be great, because that is where it's easier for me to look at the questions instead of the conversation in the comments. That being said, I'm going to start. Look at this book, Creating Agile Organizations. This is honestly one of the latest books I read about agility, and it's a great book. Even if a good part of the content existed for a while. So it starts in a classic manner, a definition of agility. We talk about the VUCA world, business agility, shorter lifespan of companies, faster to become a highly valuable company. So most of the books about agility start like this in the recent years, because it's almost everything about business agility. Now, this is not a talk about this book or the books I'm going to present, because there are a few, but I definitely recommend going through this one. And this is another book, 2 years earlier. Of course, business agility, 6 enablers of business agility. So straight to the point, business agile. Again, we have the lifespan of companies, which is getting shorter and easier to have a market valuation for 1 billion. Of course, we should look at this information now from a very different angle, because we should see how the market capitalization works from now on. Things seem to be a bit changed, at least in the recent 2 years. And these are 2 books, 2022 and 2020. And I need to fit them in waves of agility, so that I can talk a bit about the waves of knowledge that came through the Agile movement. And we had in 2001 the Agile Manifesto, which was team agility. 2007, 2009, we had team agility. And then we had business agility. And if you look for the VUCA world, you will find 87, which of course is not the reality, but it will land where I want to go. The movement became more and more popular in 2016. And yeah, so we can see in 2 decades, we had at least 3 big waves of knowledge that emerged out there for us to leverage. And there are lots of good books out there. So we can see these investments, we can see this body of knowledge. There were, of course, books that came along with them. Here I have some of my favorites as well, but not necessarily books that I recommend, because these are books that I recommend, but pretty rare. I enjoy them. They are good books. But for example, the book Sprint 2016, it's a book that I read somewhere in 2021, if I remember correctly. And while I was reading it, I said, why on earth someone would write a book like Sprint in 2016? Because most of the principles, content, everything was out there. So if you were doing agility for a while and with a flavor in innovation, most of the things that you find there you would say, well, I'm doing it. Having short cycle times, testing an idea in 5 days, things like this. And the idea of repeating the same knowledge, or even sometimes having the feeling that the author is creating something new, was out there. For example, when I look at those who created this book Sprint, it came from Google, but not Google Ventures. So, and for sure, agility didn't reach venture capitalists. So once they understood how to do better their work, they created the content that supports their experience, and they promote that further. But in a sense, this is the first challenge. We are reinventing the same knowledge again and again. Bismarck had a saying, only fools try everything. And I do believe we need to try, we need to experiment. But there are many things we shouldn't try because so many tried them. And also there are things that we cannot try. We don't have the energy, the capacity of trying everything. So we need to be careful about it. Experiments are good, but we should experiment things that many tried, and just to see if they work also in our context, instead of starting tabula rasa, as we could say. As I said, those are books that I don't necessarily recommend. These are the books that I recommend. These are, I think, they are my record of recommendation. So I can't say how many times I've recommended scaling and agile development. So the book I started with, most of the content, it's quite, we can find it in this book in 2008. Or Scrum, it's a French book, Claude Aubry. I really love the way the author vulgarizing. It makes things, everything is simple to make your first steps with Scrum. Fifth discipline, how many times I've promoted that, and so forth. But if we go backwards even more, we can see that most of these books present things from their experience, author's experience. Some of them are more built like in a journalist manner. Some of them are more like opening minds towards some kind of change. And they say, I tested this, I tried this, it worked, it was marvelous. And they get some sort of theory from, they look for the science that supports what they say, so that they can make a point and say, hey, there is science proving what I'm saying, do that. And agility was great in this. Agility was great in this because it kind of made very visible lots of things that were out there. And in a sense, they made them pragmatic so that we can use them. For example, complex adaptive systems, complex system theory, queuing theory, Little's law, things like this. We've heard about them through agility, but they existed before 1970s, 80s, all that existed. So don't try everything. We don't have the energy. Go for things which are very, very well tested. And the second challenge, we say agility, it's not about rules. We can't have rules. We can't have anything rigid in Agile. Well, let's start with Agile Manifesto is rigid. So it's ironic, and it's a manifesto that will not evolve. It was meant like this because in the vision of the authors, agility, if you do and understand the values and the principles from the manifesto, only good things will come out of it. So that's the rigid point for them. Of course, I believe that Agile Manifesto will expire in time, maybe in more additional 10 years, I do believe it's still relevant for his intentions. And it was an anarchic movement. This is very important. And we should not forget. At that point, they were crazy. These people who wrote the manifesto, they weren't the business as usual. And the fact that it worked, it was more like a luck kind of thing. It proves something about how open system works, and the fact that something can make a difference if you really have good ideas. But it wasn't guaranteed that it will work. There were many things that we had as ideas and they didn't work, all of them. And if Agile is about technology, it's about technical depth and evolutionary code, but we kind of forget enterprise architecture, because agility started from bottom up, from team, not enterprise. And most of the teams which consider them seniors in Agile neglect enterprise architecture. And this is very bad in many regards. At Pentalog, we do between 2-3 technology due diligence per week. And we see CTOs struggling and companies suffering because they weren't taking into account the enterprise architecture. So this is very important. We cannot talk about it a lot, but it's an interesting blind spot for CTOs and for Agile teams. And it comes along with IT stewardship and data stewardship. We have regulation, we have things to comply with. There are so many forces in a company. We can't say we are just Agile and we serve customers. We also need to serve and integrate much more many needs. So the way we integrate security, privacy, data flows, when Agile appeared, it didn't really integrate all this stuff. And we need to find ways to do that right. And usually at the team level, that's poorly understood or enabled. Another challenge is lots of critics that come around agility, and this is good. This is good. If we don't have critics, agility, I think, would be superficial. Even some of the founders, like Martin Fowler, criticize agility, but not in a sense like agility is not good. In a sense that it's poorly applied in some contexts, and lots of critics about the popularity of Scrum, which is even poorly applied by many organizations. But from my experience, I didn't see a poorly applied Scrum where people really understood its constituent parts and why the authors have chosen some of the elements. So without exception, it didn't work well because it wasn't understood correctly. And then we go to things like competitors of agility. Now you can see this paragraph from a book, Agile 2, about DevOps. Now, some say agility took over DevOps and shouldn't. And if we look at reports like this and we say many consider they are DevOps without considering they are Agile, which is interesting. Because from my experience, that's almost impossible. You can't really be DevOps, as we say, state-of-the-art DevOps, without being Agile, because organization needs collaboration, and agility comes with lots of insights into this space. But anyway, there are competitors and new movements, and there's no guarantee we will talk about agility tomorrow, and that's fine. Maybe we talk about DevOps and everyone will understand also Agile in the future, and that's fine. But be mindful, as a side advice, if somebody is hearing me with interruptions. It is working bad. Does everyone hears me well? Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. Sorry, there must be something with the connection with some of the people in the audience. So I hope you managed to solve that out. Yeah, I'm getting back to to the presentation. So there is no agility without DevOps, and in my opinion, there is no DevOps without Agile, even if other people consider differently. So Agile has competition, and in my opinion, Agile doesn't worth fighting for. Why? Because the hardest way to make an Agile transition is to talk about Agile values and values in general. This is a very important lesson it comes from experience and not just my experience. Because when you talk about Agile, you talk about values, mindset, principles. And when you say to others, you need to transition to agility, you need to have these values, it's like, you don't have these values. I have the values, you don't have the values. It's like resistance from the start. It just doesn't make any sense. There are other ways to transition to agility, and it's better to look at real pain points and solve them. There's so many practices, methods in the Agile world. You don't need to go through all the values. You will learn that as an organization with time. And team agility and business agility are two different animals. What works at the team agility level doesn't necessarily work at business agility level. There are different concerns. And sometimes we could say we put a team, we have an organization with 300 employees, and we set up a team of 3 people doing some sort of feature support for a particular set of companies or a legacy product. And that's fine, it's temporary, and we want to do this for 6 months or 1 year because it's not strategic. Our strategy is something different. We want to put our investment somewhere else. Now, if the team there with their remaining energy, they invest in agility, they do much more than required, it's like wasting the energy of the company. Instead of doing that, they should say, what's the highest priority in the company? Because if we have some spare time, maybe we can contribute at another level. But anyway, team agility and business agility, they are not the same thing. And business agility, it's about strategy, and strategy, it's what defines what should happen at everything in the organization. So at the strategic level, we may close something we have in portfolio, like a product area, a product, and that's fine because we want to, I don't know, survive, adapt to the market. And this is very important. We have these two forces, and of course, in between, there is much more than that, but there are things that change the business and there are things that run the business. And team agility was too often in things that run the business. There are product companies where they kind of merge. But anyway, there is still change the business. There are things that can influence from the external world, from the environment, from the strategy. And one last challenge I want to talk about is, does Agile work? Of course it works. There are so many studies showing that. Some of them show that even talking about it changes something in the company. So I couldn't have enough slides to put everything, but you have the books, so you can get the references and see much more about it. So yeah, agility works. There's no doubt about it. It's just that sometimes we might invest too much in areas and make them more evolutionary to adapt in things which aren't strategic. So we need to look at agility from a 360 degrees perspective, but different layers from various angles. We have the business system and we have the technology and data, and we should see, like, I really like this perspective and say, where do we want to be? Where should we be more adaptive or more rigid? This shouldn't be something that emerges. It should be something that is, in a sense, taught. Because copying what works down doesn't work at the highest level. I've said that before. So calibrating at all these levels is very important. And here is where I'm going to give some hints. First hint, there is no self-organization, so team agility, done right, if we don't know where we are and what harms the business. For example, if an agile team says to be more efficient, I will collect some data, we will collect some data from the users and so forth. Maybe that's not good for the business. Maybe that can harm the business because we are not allowed to collect that data. Point. And so we need to know what can harm the organization. There is something, for example, I not repeating it enough about data sensitivity. There are things which are highly sensitive, with things that can be public, things in between. Putting that in the same system database, it's usually a bad idea. And we still see new products, new systems that emerge like that. So teams that take decisions need to know what or which of their decisions may harm the organization. And we need to ensure they learn something about it. Another hint is learning is a key activity. There shouldn't be a company today that doesn't have a core learning team system capacity. Everything we do is learning. We take a decision and we say we want to address that market, and because of that, and this is what makes us unique and different, and this is what we are not going to do. I'm just giving very high level examples of from strategy. These are learning pills. Those who are newcomers need to see this all the time. So we need to ensure they understand them, they like them, they are aligned with them, and we need to test and verify their knowledge. And that's an example. If we say that something like collecting some specific data is forbidden, like employees shouldn't collect health data of their team members, even if they consider this is a good idea, it harms the organization because that's illegal in many companies. So if that's a decision that we or something from regulations, it's a learning pill. Everyone should know it from the start. So learning is everything. This is why many companies invest in learning. So and we can't talk about technology and teams without diffusion of innovations. Because technology is always social technological changes. So it's never just technology. There are so many good book examples in the book that I've just shown recently. And technology is, in many regards, still today, it's so complex, so large, so difficult to summarize put in one square or in several squares and make them a comparative analysis. It's a lot like religion and strong beliefs here. And we cannot just say we ignore this. Whoever says this, they don't know what they're talking about. This is why we have the Conway law. I still meet developers that don't know what the Conway law means, or CTOs, or people in IT. And I think this is a very interesting lesson that we should take. So the architecture that we projected through our increments will mirror the organizational structure. So the way we are organized matters. Of course, doing Scrum is not enough. There are so many things we can talk in this space. Enterprise architecture, again, if you are neglecting it, you are doing it very, very wrong. Because every increment we do, every feature we try to implement, there might be something redundant in the organization. I remember a scenario that repeats and continues to repeat for identity and access management or CRM not being used in the product. A company developed their microservice of customer relationship, and they had the state-of-the-art product in CRM. I'm not going to give the name to make more publicity because this company upset me recently. But that CRM is perfectly capable to act as a microservice and build some logic around. And for that, those particular scenarios work perfectly. And they don't do that because, first of all, they don't care about enterprise architecture. CTOs, for example, they are outward looking. Information officers were inward looking. They were taking care of enterprise architecture. CTOs were looking outwards. And teams and developers in product, they are outward looking for customers. Well, there's much more than that. And we need to know what are the processes and things like this. it's a foundation, what I said until now, for other stuff. Like we need to know where we are. And here is an example from Pentalog. I put an example that we have in the demo dashboard. Our customers, it's not an easy thing to do. They have some sort of score in their products like this, so that they know where they are in skills, security, because the worst thing that happens in this industry is that we don't know where we are. We don't know where we are. A CTO, a chief information officer, they don't know where they stand, because there is so much. There are so many perspectives. Who knows all that? Nobody knows all that. We are doing CTO assessments a lot. I don't have the figure right now, but in January there were at least 10 CTO assessments. And there's no CTO in those assessments who knows where their product stands on this axis. And the key challenge that we had at Pentalog was that we offer teams for our customers, for CTOs, and we offer them for 2-3 years. And the CTO is happy, and the CTO leaves, and there's a new CTO coming, and he's not necessarily happy. And we are in between. So we had to develop this kind of methods, tools to mirror where they are, so that whatever decision they take, it's their stuff. So this is very important, and it's a challenge in the industry. When we have satellites with 0 day, because everyone has Log4j, and I don't know, we not going into details, that needs to cost something, huh? And it was, I know, half of the planet. We are for something. It's not the president of those organizations who are responsible for all this. And decisions impact the culture. So this is the 6th hint. Because everything we do is related to decisions. But here are some key points about an agile organization. First of all, we cannot expect team agility and not do anything but business agility. How relevant is to ask developers to, I don't know, deliver at a faster pace, have shorter cycle times, limit their work, because that's their first conclusion, whether it's we need to limit the work to not have a system saturated. And at the highest level of the organization, we take decisions after decisions, then we change and we give them work to do. We need to limit what happens there and to act in a sense more strategic. We can't push everything there. So limiting work decisions that impact operations, it's important. And second of all, there's nothing which more impact in an organization at a cultural level than changing the decision-making process. People usually talk in cultural impact about values, and again, that's the worst thing you can do. If someone saw that working properly, please let me know. You have a process, a decision-making process in a company. You look at those people, how they take decisions. You stop that. You put something in place. You have a cultural decision impact very fast. This is very interesting. And then, of course, limit the decision-making, as I said previously. And hint number 7, and this is for developers at least, really want to see them here. Not everything needs to be kept evolutionary. So there is a talk you'll see. It's about, we have a series CTO fundamentals, and we have a season 2 next week. Is done with our partner, Bunny Shelder. And there we are going to talk about technical debt. And this is very interesting, because when you talk with developers about technical debt, everything is there. They work for 3 years and we have 20 years of technical debt. Something is not reasonable in these conversations. So just to give some heads up about learning. So there is this interesting author, Adam Thornhill, and he says something like this. Let's look in Git, and he's looking in source code, and he sees that most of the changes are always somewhere in 20% of the code, 15-20%, and this is where we need to keep things evolutionary. So not everything is at the same importance when we say it should be evolutionary. What does it mean? Evolutionary, adaptability, agility. So not everything should be at the same granularity. we need to have some sort of priorities. These are the parts where the organization needs to be more flexible, more adaptable. These are the parts, because technology is also organization, I said it before. These are the parts where we need to keep, I know, if it's not evolutionary, that's fine, for the greater good of the company. The same with any product. So we need this kind of frameworks to guide us, and to be an agile team. We also need a decision ledger. This comes, I don't know if you heard about architecture decision record. It's kind of similar. When we take decisions, that are all wrong decisions, because if you look for I had a great book from an amiral, France, Loic Finance, who says politicians consider that generals, when they take decisions, they take from a set of ideal decisions, and we just need to choose one, and that's it. And we usually, in fact, need to take decisions from a set of a poor set of very poor choices. All the decisions aren't great, so none of them is great. The same for any kind of decision making in IT, because we merge the organization. And when we look from the outside, the decisions a team takes, we would say, who would take this kind of decisions ever? Well, we need to do that. We take shortcuts, we take baby steps towards the direction, and we need to trace that, because when you face an audit, you need to put that in content and explain why you are doing what you are doing, and how the increment evolved in layers. So this is very important, and things like total cost of ownership and other kind of interesting tools are there for you to use. And then the 9th hint, it's about the way we look at governance, strategy, and tactics. Tactics we do, we won't know it's tactics or not, that's a different thing. Strategy we do, it's a good strategy, good, well-refined strategy. It's a fair point. Most of the organizations don't have a well-refined strategy. I think that's a bit too strange, but everyone on his own from this regard. And there's governance. Governance is the efficiency of what we say we do, in a sense. Not just policies like ESG and things like this. So if you look at holacracy, they speak about governance only from these regards. And this is also my favorite definition of governance, efficiency management. And you look at things that you say at strategy, tactics, and you name it, roles. We have a CTO, we have a product owner. How efficient is that for us? You need to be able to do that, and that's a governance function. If you're not doing this, you cannot enable business agility. It will emerge in ways that will discourage agility, at least from what I saw. And the last hint, just to stop, because this is also interesting. The market is evolving. We've seen all these tools, AI-driven or not, doesn't matter. Everyone needs to be multi-skilled. I have a great, I really liked the book Range. I don't know if you know it. Of course, I couldn't put all the interesting books here, but it's another one that you can look. And Range says something like, there are specialists and generalists, and when they are younger, for example, in sports, it's better to try many sports when you are young, without a specialization, and specialized when you are older, after you tried enough. In a sense, being a generalist, it's important. If you look at innovation recently, or the most important innovations, you see that those who innovated were formed, trained in a field, or at least two fields, and they applied what they learned in another field. What does it mean? Excellency in this regards comes from at least two bodies of knowledge, the confluence of them at least. So high value employees now, they need to develop multi-skilled set. And we need to encourage that as a company. So as I said, there shouldn't be a company without a core of learning. And I gave an example for Scrum Masters in the previous slide. Yeah, I do mean it. We can't have Scrum Masters. Scrum Masters, there is one role of a Scrum Master is efficiency manager. They remove impediments. So everything in the end is an impediment, and they remove it. They need to ensure it's removed, not them in particular, but the organization removes that impediment. And if you look, teams learn, they study, they change technology, tooling, processes, and all that. Look at the Scrum Master in the last 3 years. What do they use as tools, methods, approach? So we can't say as Scrum Master, like, you keep all the things to adapt. I don't have anything to adapt. We need to act smarter. We need to leverage technology. I'm not saying the Scrum Master should be technical, not at all, but not engaging with technology, not automating, not learning things like this. That would be that's a pity, because it sends the wrong message to the team. Like, look, I'm doing great, not learning anything new in the space of my tooling, at least. So that's one point. Or developers. We have developers, they know Excel. Of course, they should know Office kind of tooling, and they should be good at. That's not something they should learn. They know Figma, they know other kind of tools, of course. And there's much more. They should learn Tableau and self-serve, and they should learn lots of things. And usually they do. It's just that they learn usually the geeky stuff. If it's analytics like Tableau, Power BI, someone else needs to do it. I'm exaggerating, but you see where I'm getting, huh? So this is where things become important, because, of course, we cannot, most of the organization cannot afford all the skills, all the people they want. Before going any further, imagine a team, we said an efficient team, it's below 9 people in terms of team agility. How many domains of knowledge can we put in it? We put development, and there is a front end, back end. We have storage, database, clouds, kind of. We have DevOps, which is also a wide range of possibilities. We have security engineering. We have data. We have QA. We've put everything shift left. There's a limit in what we can put, privacy and all this stuff. So there's no other way. We will find ourselves with teams, with grown hackers, everyone. Efficient at 20 people? No, we need to learn some of these aspects. So multiple skills. So before going to a conclusion, Agile is here to stay. Not necessarily as Agile. I don't think it matters anyway. There are so many things that appeared in the Agile field. I don't see a good reason someone would not want to study in those body of knowledge. But if we name that in a different way, that's not a problem, and nobody should have a problem. Because anyway, we continue to understand agility in a very different way. And you can't have two senior organizations in Agile and you look at them and they do the same thing. No, they don't. And also there are some sunk costs. You've seen that a bit in some slides. Especially for Scrum Masters, be aware. The fact that there's something more extreme programming alike, that shouldn't prevent us to do more engineering practices or to explore, at least theoretically. We need to have good reasons when to change from Scrum to something else. But the resistance by default is not the solution. But when we are certified Scrum Masters, certified product owners, moving to organization where that's not used, that can be challenging because it might diminish the value of ourselves in terms of roles. But whoever is in his trap, in this trap, has much more important challenges at the personal level, in personal growth, than serving others. So first, work with yourself, and then with others. There might be something fishy going on there. Also, we reinvent a lot, and we shouldn't. We reinvent too much. There are so many things tested, proven, system, products, tools. We don't need to do that. And I mean, again, I'm making this example again with identity and access management. Again, 3 weeks ago, I found a team that developed and coded around identity and access management themselves without using the system or product for that and leveraging it. And they are not aware with the vulnerabilities, the problems, the challenges they are going to face in a B2B world where they are. So this is so sad in a sense. So I'm not saying reusing by default, but there are some limits. There are things that work. Using a cognito or shouldn't be, should be made, or such a product should be by default instead of coding that ourselves. Technical excellence. So if there is something I could criticize at Scrum, that's it. We kind of forget its importance, and we don't have the necessary skills all the time. We don't have the necessary skills where there are lots of limits of what we can do. New agile methods that neglect technology and architecture are continually created. Let's talk about DevOps, SecOps, DataOps, lots of things. These are movements, and there are methodologies in it, and key indicators and practices, and some of them might become winners. But if they all of them neglect something very important from the enterprise, and agility, in the way it was defined, neglected architecture, and not as the collective architecture for a product, but enterprise architecture at least. Learning as a core organizational function, IT stewardship, data stewardship, they are important. Usually they are not correctly stated. If you read a book like A Seat at the Table, it's a great book from a chief information officer saying that all these aspects of IT work completely on a different track than agility, and we need to do something about it. And he's right, we need to do something about it. Self-organizing is not a given. It has some limitations, and we need to know, as a foundation to do that right, we need to know what decision we can take so that we don't harm the organization. There are enough studies to prove value of agility. If you're wondering, team agility may hurt business agility, so business agility should prevail. Yeah, invest in your agility efforts in areas that require more changes. There are things in your enterprise where it doesn't matter, or at least if it matters now, it might not matter in 6 months. And this is it, agility in crisis. So you have here, we have 15 minutes for Q&A. You have a QR code for feedback at the left, and there is also a QR code for the next webinar, CTO fundamentals. We have a new season, I've already told you about, where we will talk about technical debt. Now, that being said, let me go to the Q&A and start answering the questions, but there are no questions. Anyone who has a question? If you didn't understand until now, I like to talk. So, is AI going to help or be a problem in the future? Is going to help. I have also a video about a workless future, so it's a possibility. You can search that, Google, find it on YouTube. It's my vision about a workless future. I think AI will help, but it will have dramatic impact on the way we do. Developers are not going to be the same. What we do as developers today will be very, very different, much more specific, domain-specific, problem solving and things like this, augmented and so forth, and much more interesting tools automated already out of the box that we will leverage. I hope, Răzvan, that answered your question. Jean-Pascal, what about agility and sustainable software development? This is such a powerful question. So today, I have challenges in creating, we have at Pentalog challenges in creating what we call a maturity model for green IT software development, kind of like sustainable development. It's not easy at all. And I've studied this all along the year, last year. So there are many things in infrastructure and platforms, but at code level, there's almost nothing. Almost, because there are some things. Are they important today? Not enough. First of all, technology is social, religious, like in beliefs, and we don't leave a legacy behind. CTOs don't leave a legacy behind. So I've done lots of workshops, pools in these regards. So those who say they are happy after they took over an existing organization, they say they are happy only because they shouldn't expect something different. So when we take over the work of other CTOs, we are not happy. So keep this in mind. We are not leaving a legacy in terms of what we say we should do. Sustainable development, that's a fairly different animal. So I think sustainable software today is somewhere near a joke. And this is so sad. And I have no solution. It's very difficult for me to, there are so many things, it's driven by market and things like this. So I would say it's a matter of maturity. There are things, look, a feature, we take it in the sprint, in the iteration, whatever. We work on it, we demo it, people like it, the product owner loves it. It goes to production, that's the first version. How efficient is that running? How green is that? So there are many things to be discovered here, and the whole philosophy, in my opinion, that we need to grasp. So I want to keep it short because I could talk for hours here. So I hope at least you have half of the answer, and it will have a tremendous impact in teams and the way we look at agility. But that's it. Do we have to rename our agility for that? No, don't do that. We need to be careful of the effort we invest. But if others have a different definition of it, don't fight for it. That's the answer. It doesn't worth it. Is AI a fiction? No, it's reality. 5 years ago, no, 2017, I said there are 10 years. In 10 years, I forecasted that, and it's my forecast. Doesn't engage anything or anyone in Pentalog. There's nothing to do. In 10 years, we reinvent development coding. And in 5 years, I said there will be very smart tools to help us to augment the way we work. ChatGPT, Copilot. This is just the beginning. So yeah, it will change. It will be a game changer. Love to talk about it. Connect me on LinkedIn. I'd love to say more about it, at least. Natalia, how you manage to build trust with your client so that he believes you that you are right on. There they are. Well, you don't. But that's the first thing. We have signal. You have partial reality. It's something that you mirror, and you can be biased as others, and that's it. If they don't like what you say, it's interesting signal for you first. if they don't agree, it would be interesting to see where is the gap. And that's a great construct for collaboration and going further. It usually should build trust. But there are organizations that don't want to be agile, and I was invited, for example, to help some of them. And if they are rigid and not careful, we should say it's not for you, and that's it. Everyone lives happily ever after. So don't fight for it. It's their take, their responsibility to do something about it. But you can also be wrong. So that's very important. Laszlo, do you consider that the lack of business level agility is mainly caused by the Tayloristic project management mentality most of the leaders with no tech background are still having? No. I think developers and they are in a sense dreamers and innovators, and they struggled, and they had to find and invent new ways of working, and it wasn't what the business felt. The business felt that their operations are going on, and from a statistic perspective, they do business, and that's it. But they struggle when we say it's not innovative enough. That is where they listen, for example. And learning organization, it's agility in practice or the other way around. Just put that on the plate and you will see how much they will enjoy it. The problem with agility and business agility is that the entry points in an organization come through IT. Something is wrong in the other branches. Why don't executive officers talk in their MBAs about VUCA world, for example? I'd love to hear more about it. I've seen some of them including that. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe we have too many not going to an MBA which is perfectly suited for them. I don't know. I'm not a supporter of MBAs. This is just an example. We have executive officers and financial officers that they consider they do the great job, and their tools and methods didn't change, and that's it. And you can't fight with that, only if they understand it. But mostly, I didn't hear or seen a business stakeholder who doesn't understand this. Where they have challenges more is when it becomes too elitist. We talk from the books. We talk with metaphors, with things like keywords, cinephile, things like this, that they don't ring a bell. It needs to be more pragmatic. So in the way we talk with people, we should find, as I said, if we talk about values or VUCA world, we are losing them. Because when you talk about VUCA world, it's like, haha, you don't know that. This makes no sense. Because from that point to learning and doing something important is so much. So be pragmatic, clear problem to be solved, and find the tools from the agile movements that suits best for that problem. I hope I answered Laszlo. Did you have organizations that you understood from the start you cannot help them? Yes. I'm not going to name them, but I remember a very interesting, powerful bank who needed to do Scrum because the headquarters said agility is important. And I was contacted. I blend there with everyone at the C-level, and they said we want to do a Scrum exercise, and with half a developer and half a Scrum Master, someone there, and that's it. Okay, might be an interesting exercise, but that's not Scrum. So I don't know why you want to do Scrum, but if it's Scrum you want to test, it's not that. But you can test this thing that you want to test. So it worked. I have also found organizations that we kind of said, it's not for you today. Jean-Pascal, thanks. Okay. Marianne Brânzilă, I saw recently a presentation from Craig Lerman I know you are a fan. Yes, I am. On the topic of proving Agile works, and it's actually hard, close to impossible to prove. If you consider all the complexity of each context, how can you actually undoubtedly link the success with agility? Well, the perfect place to start from are the studies that you can find available. These are research studies available there for you. They are on this slide, 38 slide, and there are much more. That's the perfect place I would start from. There are studies, scientific studies that that can help you in this regards, even if things are complex. Thank you for the question. Benjamin, I always see people trying to bring agility in business or teams based on the existing frameworks instead of trying to build the culture first. Don't you think we should start to work with the people, their mindsets, and their personal culture instead and co-create their own framework instead? Well, this is a great question, Benjamin. And the answer is no. That's usually the worst way to start a transition, because you're actually telling people you don't have the right culture, values, and all this. So it's everyone will run from it. So if you want a real change at the personal level with someone, there are ways to do that. It depends on the state of the person. If the person in the challenge area, it's a beginner, or it's someone who is already good enough, or it's already an expert, it makes a difference. But this is a personal level. If it's someone who's a beginner, don't ask smart questions, don't mentor, don't do anything. Just give them trainings, actionable things, theory, step by step what they need to do. You are losing them enough. If they have practice but they are not experts yet, mentor them. If they are already experts, better than you in what they do, like in coding or whatever, coach them, IoTics, there are lots of instruments in these regards that can be very helpful. If it's about the organization, well, why not doing the same thing? But doing the same thing when you have an executive board taking decisions after decisions, not having a sufficiently refined, because you never have a fixed strategy. We have a sufficiently refined strategy that allows you to take better decisions, so not to decide on everything. And you know from a good strategy things that you don't do. So things like this. You look at this level and the way people take decisions. Act there. If they really care, they will listen to you. If they don't care, they are not ready. Doesn't matter. You do something else for them, which is still useful. They are not ready to change. But look at the decision process, and here you act in different ways depending on the maturity of the people, because you always need to come back to the decision-making process. They are again juniors in making it great, even if they have a company for 20 years. They are good because they started to practice, and then they are experts in that. You can so into position in a slightly different manner. Same steps of helping personal or group or large organization, but again, not values, culture. That's usually things that prevent us from having a real good change. I was also a junior at one point in time. I was also someone who didn't know anything about Agile. I was also someone who was doing a poor job as a manager. When someone had to tell me that I don't have the right values and understand, stop listening. A good lesson from my perspective, I hope. Adrian Helleria, as a Python developer, how can technology, Python or any other, help organizations to improve their agility and responsiveness in crisis situations? Well, there are two things. Is the technology making a difference in the life cycle of the company? I'm going to take a few more minutes. So for those who want to leave, don't worry, that's fine. We finished, but I'm going to take the last questions because I feel so good. So about so by whoever wants to leave the session, I understand. Getting back to Adrian's question, so technology, does it make a difference in our business? Like business strategy is the same as technology strategy, or the technology helps us to do something like in more efficiency, like operational efficiency? Is it faster or cheaper? So depending on these two aspects, you work in a very different manner. Because if it's cheaper and faster, that's operational efficiency, the technology, and that might be the only competitive advantage you have. Playing there, that's the red ocean, and that's usually the most dangerous spot where you can be. And usually there, companies start to think we need to innovate something. And technology there in the, let's reconfigure the value chain. And then we say, this is the value chain and my product is doing this. I have, and your technology should bring a leverage in somewhere there. If you are in this kind of particular company, it's very important to be strongly coupled with the executive board and the investors so that they can support when you find opportunities in technology and you translate to them, and the other way around. Strongly coupled anyway, together, the strategy and the technology team. But if the technology is just operational efficiency, don't bother them. Go with your operation officer, ensure you're doing a good job for him, her, and that's it. So I hope it understands. You understand what I'm saying. Now there aren't companies in this pure schema. We always have something else that we want to do, but that's a different question. Marianne, can we say a few words about Scrum and what was the name of the second AI that you named? ChatGPT. That's a very popular now solution. If someone can put the link there from OpenAI. So it became popular recently. Someone I think already did that. Or Copilot. Okay, yeah. For coding, yes. But there are actually so many solutions are there already. People are making a difference in this space in video, audio, text for a while. ChatGPT impresses us, but it's a more evolved and much better solution. But we had others before, and today this is the version we have. There will be the 4th version, the 5th version, the 6th version, so and new others. And they just talked about it right now in the news at ProTV about ChatGPT. Yeah, cool. Well, I hope we've done a tour and you enjoyed. I hope I answered to your questions. Is anyone that asked a question that felt like I've missed the answer? I can take one more. If you want, no? Okay. Well, thank you for your support, and remember, and for listening. And remember, there is a new talk, a new season going to start in CTO Fundamentals, CTO and Technical Debt. I hope you will also enjoy it. And the other sessions, you can find them on pentalog.com. You can search for them. As this PentaBAR will become available there. Have a nice day. Thank you for listening and see you to the next session. Bye.